Hi, everybody, and welcome to another exciting edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. On this episode, I'm delighted to be talking with comics creator Brennan Wagner. May I call you Brennan? Is that all right?
Yep.
All right. Thank you so
Yep.
much, Brennan, for jumping in, for joining, for talking with me about your work. I know that you've spent a good number of years now in the comics industry working on some very well-known characters as a colorist primarily is how I've known your work. But then I also know that you are doing a variety of jobs, a variety of roles in the world of comics right now. And one of the series that I want to make sure that we talk about most in this episode is St. John, where you're also writing and visually a beautiful book as well.
Thanks, man. Yeah. So I'm co-creator and co-writer and I color the book as well. I call it co-art. I say I co the book with my
Hmm.
buddy. We sort of split the role equally. And yeah, if anyone wants to check that out, that's a Dark Horse publication.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
you can get it on Things from Another World or just go to darkhorse.com, look up St. John.
Yeah, currently four issues. Is it a four-issue arc, or are you planning further out beyond the four
We
issues?
are we are planning further out.
Awesome.
The four issue arc is the result of most comic book series these days. The sales seem to drop off after five, so you're going to see a lot of these sort of like four, four, four. Even if the intentionality is to do multiple runs of four that are then collected into something bigger. The number four seems to be the most financially successful route to take. So we are doing four for our first run. And it's a seasonal book. Book one is so it just made sense to us to do it this way. Where and this is because our story centers in Portland, Oregon, my hometown that
Hmm.
I love so much, and the seasons here are really important. They're a big part of life here in the Pacific Northwest. So St. John is a seasonal book. It's a issue one is fall, issue two winter, three
Hmm.
spring, and four culminates with a big pride parade in downtown Portland during the summer months. So so the four issues what we have planned immediately, and that will be collected into a trade paperback. We already have the paperback slated. I think it's at like 120 pages. There's a bunch of bonus content that you'll find at the back of that
Hmm.
a paperback. But we have a four issue arc planned after that hopefully gets collected as well. Maybe when all eight of those are done, Dark Horse will collect them into a big one. I don't really know, but that it's something that's further down the line. So but as of now, it's sort of tentatively ongoing, is what I've been telling people.
Nice, nice. I love it. You almost have to plan as a writer in a kind of a quadrilogy kind of format, it sounds like.
Yep, the first four again are seasonal. Our plan for the second four is more of like a singular narrative about the singular problem.
Hmm.
The first four are almost episodic in that they take place, months apart from one another. So it's a seasonal adventure book. I've been calling it to a lot of people. I've been telling them it's sort of an environmental disaster series. We don't really have. I mean, we kind of have a villain, a human villain, a tech billionaire type, but for the most part, the problems that St. John faces are environmental. They're local. They're issues he's trying to solve without violence. Uh,
Hmm. Hmm.
for the vast majority of this, I mean, we haven't drawn him throwing a punch yet. So it's all about helping your community and upholding like the values and the ethics that make a place like Portland tick and work, because Portland is a very bizarre place, a very bizarre city. We're trying to spell out what makes it so weird and wonderful to locals, and also to people that maybe don't know or have visited and don't quite understand it. Again, this is kind of a love letter to Portland. I grew up here. I love this place. So St. John aims to tell those stories about what's happening here in the Pacific Northwest in what we call the Rose City.
Love it, love it. You were saying that you have sort of grown up around the comics world and comics industry. So I'm curious at what point Was there a moment where you were like, I am going to make comics. I love comics and this is what I want to do? Or was it just always kind of baked in?
Yeah, yes and yes. I mean, I've always like since I've grown up around it, it's always been a part of my world, a part of my peripheral. For example, I'm doing this interview right now in my father's studio. Matt Wagner, who is a famous comic book writer, artist. He's been working in this industry for a long time. He's responsible for some of the first independently published comics in this country, and uh, growing up around that and around his success and just his greased clock like um, uh, style of work ethic has really prompted me into this industry for better or for worse. My sister, for example, has no inclination to work in the arts or in this field. It's something that I've wanted from a very young age. I've always seen growing up around my father in his studio, looking at his art, looking at the way that he works, the way he runs his own life. I've always respected that he's his own boss, and I am my own boss 14 years now in the running. So it's always been important for me to be responsible for myself and my own schedule. It's very difficult, but yeah, it's definitely like a world I can't imagine not being a part of at this point, especially. I like this is it for me. I can't imagine. This is pretty much my only set of skills, so I can't I can't imagine doing anything else.
Yeah, yeah. And so I'll just I was curious about that, but we'll backtrack here to talk about St. John because I'm curious about a couple of questions that are not on the list, so you're welcome to pass on any. But curious about the look of the character because the
Mhm.
look is really interesting to me, really attention grabbing. But then also there's this underlying sort of question of why does this person do the things that he does? And so I love that kind of central MacGuffin to the story as well.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. I say to a lot of people who ask, like, what is St. John's power? What's he all about? He's really an altruistic Boy Scout. I mean, he's a pretty classic Clark Kent type character.
Hmm.
He wants to do good, and so he does do good. And as a result, St. John is actually kind of more of a static character in our story. The real main character is our narrator, a
Hmm.
writer from New York named Tori Slate, who has arrived in Portland to sort of cover in a Time magazine most important people of the year kind of way what this guy is all about. Why is he so um, why is he so integral to the city? What is it about Portland that is interesting and attracts people here? Again, she comes from New York, so she's got a chip on her shoulder and she doesn't quite get it, but her arc is beginning to understand that, beginning to like get involved in her community. She's an observer and an onlooker.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so the story is really about getting involved. She represents the person who hesitates to get involved. John represents the person who instinctually is always involved. And John has a tiny power, which is that he's just drawn to problems that the city faces.
Hmm.
He almost listens to Portland. I've been saying it's sort of like a constant spidey sense,
Hmm.
where he's just always drawn to one thing to the next. He seems to always be at the right place at the right time, and that helps him be a helping hand to the community. But he is just one guy. He's not in the course of these issues. He's not going to, for example, solve all of homelessness.
Right,
He's
right.
not going to solve the wealth inequality. He's a guy who is going to solve a dispute between neighbors. He's going to save someone choking on the Max train on a voodoo donut.
Hmm. Hmm.
He's a character that is very localized and is very concerned with the micro and macro of a city like Portland. It really takes helping individuals to make a difference in a place like this. So that's what we're trying to show with a character like John, is that it's really all about helping, you know, uh, small groups of people or even individuals that can make a huge difference, that can have ripples. We're doing this because we feel like St. John or superhero fiction has sort of gotten away from that sense of the everyman,
Hmm.
helping the
Hmm.
everyman.
Yeah.
A lot of superhero fiction these days is a real pessimistic deconstruction of what a superhero um, can do. They're often just fighting the same villains over and over again, or
Hmm.
rescuing
Hmm.
the same people over and over again. And I really love stories that feature very relatable, down to earth individuals that are affected by these um, Olympians, affected by these heroes.
Hmm.
I think that those characters are actually our window into the sort of mythos of these stories that we love, these heroic tales that we love so much.
Yeah, I love that as a central concept, and I'm just thinking about how so many heroes kind of go from your friendly neighborhood somebody to, oh, now we're going to take down like an army of aliens, or we're going to take down this huge, massive worldwide scheme, and all of a sudden it's more of like a Bond film than a superhero story. So I love that questioning of what makes a hero as a central idea. You were also talking about the collaborative nature of the book, so wanted to give you a chance to shout out your co, as you put it, and kind of talk about what that process has been like.
Sure, yeah. So I guess I have two co's, but my main co is a fellow named Dan Scotty, one of my dearest friends. Um, uh, we co-write and co-conceive and kind of co-do everything on the book.
Hmm.
I would not be able to do this without Dan. And if anyone wants to check out Dan's newest work, he is actually doing a Flash Gordon strip for King Feature for newspapers across the country. So take a look at Dan's newest Flash Gordon daily strips in the paper. But he also is responsible for a web series called Lavender Jack that is just absolute aces. Oh man,
Hmm.
it is so good. So sort of a foppish Batman type, eccentric do-gooder, um, set in a very understandable and relatable, but fantastical, almost like Victorian mod steampunky sort of world. Just great storytelling. Dan's always been great at storytelling. I met Dan many years ago, and I pulled him on board to do a tribute to Will Eisner's The Spirit for
Hmm.
Dynamite Comic Books that featured my father Matt Wagner writing, Dan
Hmm.
drawing, and me doing the colors. And that book, that 12 issue book, which is a gorgeous hardback. If any of your listeners are Spirit fans, please check out The Spirit Returns by Dynamite Comics.
Hmm.
Um, we just poured our love of pulp and adventure into that, and it cemented us as friends and sort of creative cohorts. And when I got the opportunity to work on this, I reached out to Dan immediately, and that opportunity was, by the way, an odd thing in publishing. So this is a collaborative effort. The publisher is Dark Horse, and the sort of promotional sponsor is Portland Gear. The
Oh,
logo,
nice.
if your listeners are watching the feed, they can see this is the logo of the company, which is also the logo of St. John. It's a sort of a Letterman style P with the shape of Oregon inside of it. And the owner of Portland Gear is an old studio mate of mine, an old friend of mine named Marcus Harvey, who's just an absolute gem. And the guy has run such a cool campaign with this company. So many cool collaborations. He's worked with almost every local sports team, as well as like doing all these cool like local events, charities, stuff like that for the community. He really cares about the community. And since we were going to make a character about the community, this just all seemed to make sense to me. And Portland Gear has done a great job at promoting the material. They have gear. If anyone's interested that reads St. John, Portland Gear has St. John gear that you can go buy,
Hmm.
shirts, sweatshirts, the actual rain jacket that John wears, they made into a real jacket. It's very cool.
That's
Um,
cool. Very cool.
Stickers, hats, etc. So yeah, all of this was a bit of a conversation to get the ball rolling on, like, what does this look like? Um, how are we going to make this? Who's going to be involved? Again, I pulled in Dan right away. So
Mm,
that's sort of the origin story of St. John.
wonderful, wonderful. So I think the last official question, and then we can hit anything that we've missed, would be where would listeners go to kind of find out more about the book, the process, and then as a second part to that, it sounds like there's more St. John to come as well. So anything that you'd like to share about kind of next creative steps and resources for listeners and things of that nature.
Sure. Again, you can go to Dark Horse or thingsfromanotherworld.com to order St. John. It's also on Amazon, St. John, #1. Um, find it at your local comic book store. Support your local comic book store, of course. Have them order it.
Hmm. Hmm.
You can also order it off the Portland Gear website. They have a tab for you to purchase issues of the comic. Um, look for issues coming every 2 months or so on
Hmm.
St. John. And look for the rest of my books I've coming out too. I'm working on a Grendel book. I have a
Nice, nice.
huge Grendel book dropping with Pop next month in November. That's the Devil by the Deed Masters Edition. We finished work on that almost a year ago, and it's finally coming out, and it's just an absolute gorgeous hardback, with black gilded pages, a felt slipcase. I mean, it's one of the prettiest books I've ever worked on. And please check out my Kickstarter. I have a Kickstarter going on right now with James Robinson writing and Jeff Johnson drawing. That's called Rogue's Kingdom.
Hmm. Hmm.
I'm the colorist on that. I also am painting variant covers for them, so I'm trying to do as much of that work as I can, painted stuff. Yeah, I got a bunch of comics coming out. I'm also doing a very cool Sid and Nancy story based on the final days of Sid Vicious and Nancy Spungen of the Sex Pistols.
Hmm.
And that's with Pop drawing as well, and Marcus Parks of the Last Podcast on the Left writing, and me coloring, and that's gonna be very cool. I've seen all the art for that, and it's awesome.
Cool,
Awesome.
cool. Yeah, I'll link the Kickstarter, and I'll say I appreciate the way that you've worked on some very classic characters, Zorro.
Oh yeah, we didn't
Um,
even go over my history in pulp, man. Goodness,
oh
Shadow.
yeah,
Shadow like
yeah, the
ruled my life.
Shadow.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I also love that on top of that, you're exploring this kind of new direction, contemporary character kind of storytelling as well. So I really appreciate that, and exciting things to come, I'm sure.
Thank you, man. Yeah, thank you. Just I hope everyone just keeps checking it out. Comics are a labor of love, and it takes a good readership to keep us going. So please check out my books.
Yeah, yeah. And they're also fun to read, and love the kind of community focus, and love the direction that you're taking with Portland, and kind of telling a story of where you're from and where you live and the things that are at hand that you care about as well.
Definitely. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Have we missed anything in the talk through that you want to make sure to shout out before we close out?
No, I think I just mentioned all the projects that I'm working on. I got another Grendel series that I'm working on, another Grendel Prime series that I'm coloring, but
Nice, nice.
um and that one's been announced as well. It's a follow-up to Devil's Odyssey, which was the last graphic novel Grendel Prime series that I did with my father also writing and drawing and me coloring. But this one will be far more bloody and gritty, less sci-fi than the last one was.
Nice, nice. Well, always up for those collaborations as well. The family collaborations are working well in the world of comics, so very enjoyable for the
Yeah,
readership.
we speak the same language, Pop and I.
Yep, yep, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Brennan. Thanks for taking some time to talk with me, and glad to talk with you anytime about any projects to come.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure.